more, it's personal, because this has hit everybody at a personal level, friends, family, and ourselves. And all I can do is urge you guys to keep up the good fight with the emails and everything else you guys have been doing. So thanks a lot.
Woo! Yeah!
One of the real honors that we have is to elect officials, and you send officials into Sacramento and to Washington, and the expectation is they're going to wind up working for you. Our next speaker is one that continues to work for the dairy industry, and we're blessed to have people like him and others that are supporting the cause represented here this morning. Senator Anthony Cannella is a senator from the California 12th District, chairman of the State Agriculture Committee, former mayor of Ceres, lifelong resident of Central Valley, and founder of North Star Engineering.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here today. Last time I was here, I was in a suit, and I thought, well, I was way overdressed for this crowd, so I tried to tone it down a bit so I could fit in a little bit. But I will tell you, being up here makes a difference. People are paying attention. They're paying attention because of your passion, and also I think because you have a righteous cause. If you look at the dairy industry just direct, it's about a $6 billion industry, and that's not counting the other areas of the economy that it touches. Can you imagine if there was a solar manufacturer that produced enough jobs that created a $6 billion industry in California and they started hurting? Can you imagine what the state of California would do? We would pull out the stops to save that industry. And really all we're asking for all of you is just a fair price for your milk. That's really all we're asking, and I think it's very reasonable. You know, when I was here last time, I spoke about a letter that I circulated in the last days of the Senate when things were kind of moving fast and furiously. And the letter just asked Secretary Ross to hold a hearing. Understand the facts, come up with a proposal. If she doesn't like the proposal that you've offered, she'll come up with a proposal. And I had that signed by most of my colleagues in the Senate, Republicans, Democrats, senators that represent urban areas, senators that represent rural areas. And I think there was many signatures in the assembly. So you have people behind you, you have people that support you. I want you to know, I spoke with Secretary Ross today, and I will tell you, I know this is very difficult. She is a terrific person, and for most areas I agree with her 100%, and she's working very hard. She is taking this very personally. She cares about the dairy industry, and she told me she's committed to try to do something. And in fact, it was referenced today that she's going to have a meeting. And I think that's happening because of your pressure, because you are not letting up. And I would just encourage you to continue pushing. Call your other elected representatives. It was mentioned that we work for you. That is true. We worked for you. So make sure that you hold people accountable to do what they need to do to help your industry, because it's too important for California to fail. We cannot let that happen. So thank you again for being here. Good luck to you.
Every industry needs an advocate. You just heard an advocate speak. Senator, thank you. The dairy industry is often thought about as a man's business, but we've got some tremendous women operators in California, of which one is Antoinette DeWart, and Antoinette is vice president of the California Dairy Women's Association and a dairy woman from Elk Grove. Antoinette?
Woo-hoo! Antoinette!
Good morning. In 1916, a young man with $28 in his pocket and a small suitcase boarded a ship from Azores, Portugal, to pursue his dream in this wonderful land of opportunity. This young man was my grandfather. Little did he know that he would begin a legacy of hard work and sacrifice in this industry we call the dairy business. Today, my family is proud to say we have the fourth generation actively managing a dairy. But the fate of my dairy and the countless dairies around the state is in jeopardy due to the failure of the California Department of Food and Ag Secretary Karen Ross to follow our state dairy pricing laws. We are gathered here today to call on Governor Jerry Brown to restore some level of fairness to our state dairy pricing system. We are urging that justice be done for the California dairy farmers and their families. Dairy farmers in California are being paid substantially less than the producers in the surrounding states. The cost of production is higher in California. Our own California Department of Food and Ag, with all its numbers, facts, and figures that are punched in their sophisticated computers, show that we are losing ground, and yet the Secretary refuses to acknowledge it. 2009 was a very difficult year due to low milk prices. On our dairy, we had to borrow to feed our animals and pay the operating bills. Then we get hit again in 2012. 2009 was our earthquake, and 2012 was the tsunami that follows. A great majority of the dairies have maximized their loan to their value. How are we supposed to stay in business? The feed prices have gone up due to the drought in the Corn Belt states and the burning of corn to make ethanol. This has also led to the record high prices for all the commodities that we use to feed our animals. I want to name just a few of the businesses that are affected by the ongoing catastrophe. These affected businesses that deliver supplies or provide service to the dairy industry include the utility company, the veterinarian, vet supplies, dairy repair company, the towel company, the hoof trimmer, equipment repair, and supply companies. And we are constantly fixing old equipment because we cannot afford to buy anything new or near new. The insurance companies and diesel for the tractors and trucks that feed the animals, labor, and last but not least, the company that picks up our milk. These businesses have all increased their prices this year, resulting in a greater cost to our dairy and dairies across the state. How are we supposed to pay these bills when we can barely make enough to pay the grain company, which does not even include the hay purchases? We have no way to pass on these costs, and the fact that our state pricing system is underpaying us compared to the prices paid to the dairy producers in other states is making the situation for my dairy and those dairies in the state more dire by the day. We, the California producers, are very proud to be able to provide the consumer with the highest quality of milk in the nation. Yet, that milk that we produce surpasses the standards of other states, yet we are paid substantially less. We have lost over 100 dairies in California. 40 more have filed for bankruptcy. If this trend of low dairy income continues, the consumer will be paying much more for their milk, and most likely it will come out of state. I recently talked to a fellow dairyman from Tipton. He has been in the business as long as I can remember, and he said, and I quote, "It is devastating to drive by your neighbor's farm with no cows, no heifers, and no one around, knowing that someday it soon will be us." As dairy producers, we all know these facts. We live this bleak reality each and every day. But we need Governor Brown to fix our state dairy pricing system so that we are at least being paid a price that is equitably compared to other states. Dairy producers around the state play a critical role in the success of our economy. We create jobs and stimulate economic growth. For each dollar that the producer receives in their milk check, it generates $8 into the California economy. The message that we are conveying today is, if Governor Brown and the Secretary Ross and the department loses the appreciation of the dairy producers, then we have lost part of the American soul. Our governor must understand, and unless significant policy changes are made soon, the economic and social landscape in California will change dramatically, as many of the dairy farmers that have been in operation for generations would be lost forever. Thank you.
Good job, Nancy.
There are a couple of other legislators we try to get lined up to speak today. David Valadeo and Connie Conway both have other obligations, but I would ask just you would send a note off to them and thank you for the behind-the-scenes work that's going on. Connie Conway in particular, you don't know whether you're making an effort or a change or whether your effort's paying off, but just a phone call and email to both of them would be appreciated, I know. Our next speaker is Joaquin Content, President of California Farm Union and a Hanford dairyman.
Hey, Joaquin.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all here. I think what we need to realize is what do we have available as far as options for us. And we got to go back in history and kind of examine what's happened to us in the last 15 years. We've got a department here that has not been too producer friendly as far as I can remember. Only one time we had one secretary that really gave us a position for producers, and that's when they put in the floor back in 2003 to prevent the milk from dropping down below any lower levels. And that didn't last long. Within a couple of years, that was stripped away from us. So I think what we need to do is we need to ask the governor to take a good hard look at this department that he's in charge of, to see what he can do to bring some fairness to the department so that all the people that are being affected by this are treated equally. And that's all that we could ask. If we can ask the governor to take a look at that department and make sure that these laws are obeyed, such as being in relationship to the surrounding areas, which we're not, the $1 million a day that we're losing that we drastically need to prevent the farms from disappearing. I've got 6 or 7 farms within a couple miles from me that are empty right now. I've got one that they've already put the cranes in there and the backhoes and they're tearing down, and that was a purebred breeder for many years, and he's going to wind up planting trees there. That's not what we need for our future. We're not producing too much milk in this state. In fact, I've got a plant down there by me that's asking for more milk from independent sources, and they traditionally go through a co-op. That's how desperate they are. So it's not about supply and demand. It's not about producing too much milk. It's about inequities that we have, and we need to change this culture that we have here. The only option that we have is to do what you folks are doing out here. Is to show up to these things, put your face on the line, put your name on the line, stand behind what's going on here, and let's make a change. Thank you.
Good job, Joaquin.
One of the questions I continue to ask myself is there has to be a human element to Karen Ross. She's got to have family. She's got to have, obviously, relatives. She undoubtedly has seen her friends start businesses that have been successful and failed.